Zeph's eyes widened with a pulsing purple glow, filled with both anger and concern, as he forcefully placed 3 appendages on the council lectern to deliver chilling news. The recon fleet investigating the Orion sector for a new FTL-capable species had gone silent. The chamber erupted with chatter from various alien species, each uniquely worried about potential threats lurking in that distant part of space. Some imagined their worlds being torn apart by plasma torpedoes, while others feared their fleets would be the next targets. The sudden emergence of humans staking a claim to distant hyperspace lanes threatened to disrupt millennia of galactic peace. Rexus, a hulking reptilian, barked orders at the astromap terminal, initiating a sweep of the Orion sector to track any debris matching the missing recon vessels. George Shaw, a toughened frontier-born human with scars adorning his bald head, stepped forward with a determined swagger, offering to lead the mission. He exuded confidence and zeal for military endeavors, ready to confront any potential threat head-on. As murmurs of agreement filled the chamber, Zeph reluctantly nodded, tasking George with reconnoitering the Orion sector and determining the status of the recon fleet. If a new species had indeed emerged, George was to assess their capabilities and intentions, and if necessary, engage them to protect the Council's existence. Zeph's somber orders hung in the air, emphasizing the gravity of the crisis. Captain Marcus Blackwell, aboard the stalwart Voyager, navigated the vast expanse of space toward the Orion sector, his crew on high alert. As they approached the designated coordinates, tension filled the bridge, every member scanning their instruments for any sign of the missing recon fleet. Blackwell's rugged face tightened with concern as the sensors remained eerily quiet. "This is too damn quiet," he muttered, eyes fixed on the scanners. Suddenly, a ping broke the silence. The science officer's voice trembled as she reported a debris field matching the recon ship's composition. On screen, the shattered remnants of the fleet filled the viewport, a grim testament to their fate. "Scan for survivors, anything," Blackwell commanded, his voice rough with urgency. The crew sprang into action, fingers flying over consoles, while Blackwell paced, his unease mounting. Amidst the wreckage, a faint distress signal emerged, originating from an unknown planet nearby, not charted on their maps. Blackwell studied the data, contemplating their next move. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Harper, voiced concern about the unknown dangers below. Despite the risks, Blackwell knew they couldn't ignore the distress call. "We're going in," he decided firmly, his jaw set with determination. "Helm, take us into orbit. Prepare for landing." As the landing party descended through the atmosphere, Captain Liam Johnson felt a sense of foreboding as the ship's systems began to flicker and glitch. Strange, garbled transmissions flooded the comm channels, the alien language unsettling to his ears. Touching down on the surface, the towering trees cast eerie shadows across the landscape, sending a chill down Johnson's spine. With his weapon at the ready, Johnson nodded to his trusted officers, including Lieutenant Carter, as they prepared to investigate the source of the distress signal. Advancing into the dense forest, the oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on them, filled with the calls of unknown creatures lurking in the shadows. As they delved deeper, Johnson couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, every rustle in the undergrowth setting his nerves on edge. The forest seemed to close in around them, the air growing thicker and more foreboding. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing that seemed unnaturally perfect, a monolith pulsing with an eerie green light at its center. Approaching cautiously, Johnson's hand hovered over his weapon, his senses on high alert. But before they could investigate further, a piercing shriek shattered the silence, and a swarm of insectoid creatures burst from the undergrowth, their gleaming exoskeletons a stark contrast against the dim light. Fighting desperately against the relentless onslaught, Johnson and his team found themselves quickly overwhelmed. Several were dragged away into the darkness, their screams fading into the night. Regrouping amidst the chaos, Johnson realized the monolith was acting as a beacon, drawing the creatures towards them. With their situation growing increasingly dire, Johnson knew they were facing a threat beyond anything they had encountered before. The glyphs etched on the monolith's surface stirred memories in Captain Ethan Thompson's mind. He recognized them from ancient ruins scattered across the galaxy, relics predating any known civilization. With a grim determination, Thompson made the decision to destroy the monolith, hoping to sever the signal and buy them time to escape. As they set the charges, a deep, resonant hum began to emanate from the structure, shaking the ground beneath their feet and setting their teeth on edge. The hum grew louder and more intense, vibrations coursing through their bodies like an electric current. Thompson exchanged a worried glance with Lieutenant Jackson, wondering what fresh horrors the monolith held. The alien glyphs pulsed faster, the green light growing brighter and more unsettling with each passing second. Feeling a primal urge to flee, Thompson shouted over the deafening hum, urging the team to move. Racing through the undergrowth, their hearts pounding, they could hear the chittering of insectoid creatures growing louder behind them. The ground began to crack and split beneath their feet, FES openings appearing in the earth as swarms of nightmarish creatures poured out, their mandibles snapping with hunger. As they neared the ship, Jackson stumbled, ensnared by vines seemingly animated with cruel intent. With a burst of energy, Thompson yanked Jackson free, and they sprinted to the ship, the creatures snapping at their heels. Just as they leaped through the airlock, a massive serpentine creature burst from the ground, its maw filled with rows of jagged teeth. The ship's engines roared to life as they blasted off the planet's surface, leaving the creatures behind. A blinding flash of green light erupted behind them as the monolith exploded, sending out a shock wave that rattled the ship. Gripping the armrests of his chair, Thompson watched in horror as the planet convulsed below. "Scan the planet," Thompson ordered, his voice tight with tension. The results sent a chill down his spine. The planet's core was not molten rock but a pulsating organic mass, suggesting the entire planet was a living, sentient being. Thompson realized they had stumbled upon a threat far more ancient and terrifying than they could have imagined. Eons of slumber had now been disturbed, and Captain Nathan Harris realized that the Galactic Council's recon fleet was merely the prelude to a far more sinister plot. Something ancient, long dormant, had been awakened, and it was poised to unleash its fury upon the unsuspecting galaxy. As Harris grappled with the implications of their discovery, he knew they had to warn the Council, though a gnawing fear lingered that it might already be too late, that the machinations of this ancient cosmic horror had already been set into motion. Returning to the Galactic Council chambers, Harris and his crew bore the heavy burden of their grim discoveries. The assembled representatives fell silent as they entered, all eyes turning to the battered and weary explorers. Zara, rising from her seat, her expression a mix of concern and anticipation, addressed Captain Harris. "What news do you bring from the Orion sector?" With a heavy heart, Harris stepped forward, his scarred visage reflecting the pain and exhaustion of their journey. "Council members, what we found out there defies all reason, all understanding," he began, his voice strained with emotion. Activating the central console, a holographic image of the monolith flickered to life, its alien glyphs pulsating with an unsettling green light. The council members recoiled in shock and fear as Harris continued, "This thing, it's not just a structure. It's a node, part of a vast network that spans the entire planet," Captain Logan Barnes explained, his voice faltering for a moment. "It's alive, sentient, and it's not happy that we disturbed it." The council erupted into a cacophony of voices, some demanding immediate action while others pleaded for restraint. Zayner, a battle-scarred alien known for his ruthlessness, slammed his fist on the table. "We must seize this opportunity," he bellowed. "This planet, this entity, it could hold the key to unimaginable power. We must mount a full-scale invasion, study it, harness its secrets for ourselves." Others murmured in agreement, their eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and greed. But Barnes shook his head, his voice low and urgent. "No, we can't. We mustn't. What's out there is beyond our comprehension, beyond our control. If we try to tamper with it, we'll be unleashing something far worse than we can imagine." He proposed a quarantine, sealing off the entire Orion sector to contain the threat and protect the galaxy. The debate raged on for hours until the council finally agreed to Barnes's plan, though not without dissent. Zayner and his allies seethed with barely contained anger as the meeting adjourned. "We need to keep an eye on Zayner and his cronies," Barnes told his colleague, Malek, as they parted ways. "I don't trust them not to try something stupid that could put us all in danger." Weeks later, Barnes and his team huddled in their hidden outpost, monitoring the eerie stillness of the Orion sector. But something had changed. The transmissions they intercepted grew louder and more insistent, a constant maddening buzz in the back of their minds. As Barnes sent a final desperate message to the Council, alarms blared in the outpost. Rushing to the viewports, they watched in horror as a massive energy surge engulfed the Orion sector, signaling the beginning of a catastrophe they could not prevent. As a monstrous shape emerged from the depths of space, Captain Marcus Rivers could only watch in horror as the entity unfolded itself like a nightmarish flower, its writhing tendrils blotting out the stars. It was the planet, the entity, reaching out with its tentacles to ensnare the Council's ships that hung in orbit. Rivers felt a sense of helplessness wash over him as he witnessed the ships being dragged into the entity's gaping maw, their hulls crumbling like tin foil under the immense pressure. He could hear the screams of the crew, feel their terror and despair as they were consumed by the ancient, insatiable hunger. In that moment, Rivers knew that the Council's hubris, their greed, had doomed them all. As the entity began its inexorable march across the stars, Rivers and his team could only watch in numb, helpless silence. They were the last remnants of the Council, the only ones who knew the true extent of the horror that had been unleashed. Their only hope, slim as it might be, was to warn the other races, to spread the word of the coming darkness before it consumed them all. But even as they set out on their desperate mission, Rivers couldn't shake the feeling that it was all for naught, that the galaxy was already lost. They had reached the end of the story, a tale of destruction and despair that left Rivers with a heavy heart and a sense of profound loss.